Convergence of Ruin, Chapter 1, Desert Ocean. The patchy fog swirled, flitting in the dusty Harmattan breeze. "Strange this time of year," Bosun said to the first mate as they leaned on the taft rail. "Never seen it so calm this far out." "Nor me." The mate seemed to be listening for something. "What?" said the bosun, studying his face as he gave him a light of his cigar. "I don't know, but something ain't right." The sauntering breath of sea air swirling their soft scented aroma of cigar smoke around them, then sending it off into the patchy fog. "I don't know. The sea's warmer, in places even hot. Been no rain, no wind, blue sky never heard of this time of year. And Cap told them daft bastards in port not to send us out." They stood smoking, the flitting fog fading, soft breeze sending the smoke away. The grand authorities of New Baden had sent the 10 huge factory fish ships out of port. The whole fleet covered an area of 80 square miles. They'd been at sea for 4 weeks. The huge nets ran from the stern day and night, and they were hauled aboard at midday. The same shout from the netminder to the bridge. "Net's empty, Cap." Below decks, mumblings and moanings. "Been out here all these suns and moons. Ain't caught sight of no fish. I don't think there are any more. Ocean is barren. Time to go home, brothers." All kinds of moaning and mumbling. The Admiral called all ships. "Time to go home. I've had my divers and subs scouring days. They have found nothing. Even the Gad Shoal. Nothing, not even spawn. The remnants of fish. We're going home. Form up on the Arrowhead. Conway, take tail end, Charlie." They all answered him with the call of "Yes, sir," turning to port. The ships lined up in formation the following third sun. At midday, darkening skies began to aggravate the waters, with a strong breeze whipping the calm sea into foaming, rolling waves. Rain ran ragged, racing to the ship. 4 bells sounded as the storm hit. Monstrous white horses came charging across them. There was no warning of the storm. 1 minute, pleasant weather. The next, tempest. Ships tossed like leaves across a wind-swept autumn lawn. The bosun struggled to open the watertight sea door. He spun the wheel, turning the handle, and leaned on the metal. It gave way to his weight. The wind took hold of the door, slamming it against the outside wall, and it found its locking latch. The wind howling, it hurtled down into the lower decks. He was dressed in his jacket. He knew this would be a monster. He held on to the door handrail, then took a tentative pace onto the deck. Then another step, leaning into the wind, his sea legs holding on the rolling deck. He grabbed the taffrail with both hands, the waves now growing, swirling this way and that, with only one purpose. Then suddenly, Boreas sent the cold north wind. It began slowly, but he knew he was coming. The temperature dropped. As the seconds passed, The boatswain saw the waves swelling, and he came on, howling, in screaming, angry tones. The boatswain thought he heard gabbling gibberish from the ferocious wind. Zeus, inside the fury of it, lashed at the ship, rain changing to hurling, stinging sleet and hail. The boatswain turned his back on the onslaught. He looked up to the bridge. Windows clattering as the hail peppered him. He saw the mate at the wheel, the captain sitting in his padded starboard chair. They both nodded down to him. He thought he saw a cliff face close to the ship, and it was too late to warn the captain. The massive 90-foot wave hit the ship on her starboard side, lifting her up and up. The boatswain held on to the ice-cold rail, his body now level with the deck of the listing ship. His gripped hands frozen to the rail, and he hung there like an icicle on a winter's branch. The sleet biting and tearing at his frozen fingers. He felt as though they were being stung by killer bees. At first she seemed to be coming back to starboard. However, the pitiless storm sent the next tumultuous wave. Twice the size, she listed back to port, and she was engulfed inside the gargantuan wave, groaning as the water encompassed her, dragging her port side into the dark, dismal depths. The boatswain lost his grip on the rail, and he tumbled through the railing of the capsizing ship into the arms of the angry ocean. As he hit the water, his jacket burst into being. The sleeves inflated, covering his arms and stinging, frozen hands. The main jacket filled with compressed air. It blew up the leggings. The hood filled with air, covering his head and his face, his whole body sealed inside the padded bubble. Crewmen screamed, some dangling from handholds, others falling over as the ship turned. In the galley, the cook had been busy cutting steak. He turned with a bowl of meat for the hot plate, but when the storm hit, all hell broke loose. He fell against the stove. His arm caught the edge of the hot plate, burning his forearm. Oh! He shouted out in pain, and he staggered as the room began to turn. He reached for the prep table but missed. The kitchen porter had tripped as he came through the door from the mess deck. He looked like a juggler who had lost control of his act. In vain he tried to collect his plates and cutlery, cups and mugs, his arms flailing as he fell. He tumbled to the listing galley deck. That's when the knife rack fell. A cleaver slid off the rack, falling blade first. It cut through his leg. A boning knife somersaulted through the turmoil of the galley, slicing the man's cheek. Then, as the cook fell, his cook's knife flew in an arc, blade first, into the porter's back. The cook saw the porter reaching out for him. "Kenny," he murmured, then his eyes dimmed. As the ship began its death roll, Kenny, the portly cook, was thrown around the galley like a dog playing with its toy. He crashed into the plate stand that exploded, porcelain plates disintegrating all around him. Blood poured from his arms and face. He fell into the fridge that came loose. As he managed to stand, Kenny staggered across the galley uncontrollably. The fridge charged at him, crushing him between it and the metal sea door. He muttered something like, Teens are done for. He slid between the door and the pushing fridge. He managed to reach his friend's bloody hand. Kenny held it tight as the fridge charged back across the galley. The ship was rolling again, and the last thing he saw was his friend, and they were hand in hand against the wall, with the fridge somersaulting towards them. The boiler room was awash. Seawater came waterfalling down the gantry steps, and the third mate had just fallen into the warm water. He didn't stand up, but floated around, swishing this way and that. The engine room crew, 4 young engineers, managed to shut down the engines, and they began turning off the main valves, switches and pumps. That's when the ship turned turtle, each of them thrown around like the freestanding equipment. Tools flew. A 4-foot pipe wrench charged at one of them, crushing his chest. He tried to take a breath, but he had slid into the rising seawater. 2 of them collided. One hit the threaded brass stem on a shut-down valve. It cut through him like a knight's lance. His blood mixed with the foaming water. The 1-inch brass threaded stem burst through his chest, and he hung there like a sheet on a clothesline in the wind, the now raging water sloshing around his broken body. The senior engineer pushed the sea door almost closed, but the torrent of seawater had other ideas. The weight of water threw open the steel watertight door, bashing it and him against the metal wall. No one heard his scream as his squished body slipped to the deck. The last one of them managed to reach the gantry. He had climbed the steps on hands and knees, battling the waterfall that tried to drown him, but he made it up the steps. Then at the top, as the ship turned, his fingers grabbed through the woven stainless steel gantry, hanging now looking up at the deck of the dismantling boiler room, upside down. As the ship began to turn, he held on, tightening his fingers through the metal gantry. The water was furious. It grabbed him, ripping off his boots and then his shorts as the sea water sloshed around him. It seemed to pull on him, unhinging him from the upside-down gantry. The foaming, furious salt water took him down. He held his breath. He didn't struggle against the power, and suddenly it let him go. The engineer surfaced, gasping for breath. A pipe burst. Oil sprayed in an arc across the room, mixing with the seawater. A bucket went on the rampage as it shot across the boiler room, charging into the electrical panel. Sparks danced in the turmoil. They cascaded like a Roman candle into the oily water, and the flames quickly cartwheeled across, reaching the main oil pump that still ran, sending more oil. The boiler room was now an oven. Boilerman swam to the steps, only to be met by oily rising flames. He dived down. He saw the open door. He desperately swam towards it. As he reached his escape, the door slowly swung shut. The crushed body of his friend floated towards him, his eyes wide open, his mouth screaming in terror. As he reached out, the locking arm of the door fell, and he had no air left. He surfaced. The body floated away in the rushing water. He tried to reach the locking arm, but the angry water was still rising. He screamed. in anger and frustration, and then dove down one last time. The locking arm was bent. He tried to lift it, but the arm was now held tight by the weight of the water behind it. In minutes the room was full of water. The flames died, taking the young men with them. In the wheelhouse the captain was thrown from his chair, and he was thrown against the chart holder, knocking him unconscious. Charts fell about. A sextant jumped from the chart table, tumbling, smashing against the lopsided wall. Its arm and mirrors running around the wheelhouse. Binoculars crashed down from their perch on the sill, smashing apart on the rolling deck. The 4-foot helm spun like a propeller as the mate, who had been struggling with it, seemed to take off into the air. As she rolled, he hit the wheelhouse ceiling, laying there, blood pouring from his bashed head. Then she began turning again upright in the swirling ocean. The wheelhouse withstood the water, and the captain came out of his darkness. The mate stood up groggily after falling from the ceiling, hitting the deck. The captain tried the door, but it wouldn't budge. The mate tried the port door, the same thing. Too much water, Cap. The mate looked over to the captain, raising an eyebrow with a look of, "Oh, fucks." They shook hands, standing together, both knowing and holding the large helm wheel. The ship sank down to the waiting arms of Neptune. The cracks on the windows sounded like walnuts going through a nutcracker. Then they began spiderweb looking, running this way and that across the glass, making sounds like ice cracking in hot water. Then they shattered. The warm ocean water exploded its way onto the bridge. She sat upright in the soft ocean floor, her captain and mate still holding on to the helm.